Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to joining today's Art for Earth exhibition information session for the GSSYA Art for Earth exhibition in 2023. And so, first and foremost, I will be introducing this Art for Earth exhibition for everyone. So our theme this year is environmental conservation, global climate change, greener earth, natural, colorful, and pollinator protectors in Toronto and Canada. And so for the art, you can feel free to submit any paintings, sculptures, photography, videos, fashion design, media, or any form of art is welcome. So our submission deadline is December 22nd, 2023, and the exhibition date is January 7th, 2023. And so there are many benefits to joining this exhibition because you can showcase your creative artistic skills and passion for environmental conservation. Also, all participating artists and volunteers will be awarded commemorative certificates and volunteer hours for their voluntary service from the GSSYA. And so this is our poster for the Art for Earth exhibition, and feel free to take a look. Okay, so next I will be giving a brief introduction for GSSYA. And so this is a page on the GSSYA website. And basically, GSSYA is a youth-centric platform focused on skill enhancement and lifestyle development for young individuals. GSSYA supports a wide array of programs dedicated to promoting personal and professional growth among the youth. The organization encourages personality and psychological development through workshops on anti-hate initiatives and multiculturalism, as well as providing mental health support through programs like Confident Youth Series and Charms, respectively. Additionally, GSSYA assists in skill and career advancement through activities such as chess and mahjong game clubs, debate competitions, tutoring assistance, and leadership programs like the YMCA Youth Exchange Program, which helps youth enhance their interview and administrative skills. There are also additional programs such as the Dance Club and Opera Club, among a few others that foster a supportive community on multiple fronts. Okay, and everyone, please just let me know if there are any problems with the screen sharing. Like if at some point you're unable to see the screen, please just let me know in the chat. Okay, and then I will be showing a video about GSSYA.
You still don't have enough volunteer hours, and now you can't only come for drinking water. The best opportunity is here. Just go for it. You have such ability to be a good tutor. Mathematics, Chinese, English, water courses are waiting for you. Have you ever felt the satisfaction of teaching children? COVID-19 can't stop you from improving social skills. Listen, you not only teach others knowledge, your own brain life will also be held. That's it.
Hey, please be serious. So what do you think about this experience?
So in many cases, vacation period is an important time to improve ourselves. And motivated people will use this time to do something meaningful rather than just spend the vacation on fun. I have never regretted my decision to participate in March break camp as a tutor to help those lovely and studious kids in order to preview advanced knowledge. We have been making progress together. While I teach my students a lot of new knowledge, this process also helps me practice my logical thinking ability when solving and teaching through a question. Also, as a non-native speaker, the process of communicating with my students has also improved my oral English. The teaching process is really enjoyable, and when I see my student masters a lot of new things because of my explanation and teaching, I feel very strong and irreplaceable satisfaction. If you also want to improve yourself and provide meaningful after-school tutoring for more children, come and join us here. I promise that this will be a very valuable experience for you. And also, this kind of meaningful volunteer activity will definitely be the highlight on your application for the university.
So yeah, that was a video about GSSYA. And next, I will be also introducing the Toronto Arc for Earth Youth Leadership Program. And so we empower teams to transform Toronto into a vibrant green hub. Toronto's natural beauty is on the brink of a vibrant transformation. How can we accomplish this feat, especially with the younger generation? The solution lies in establishing the Art for Earth Program Youth Leadership Program. Much like numerous grassroots organizations, Eco Toronto heavily relies on teenage volunteers to fulfill its mission to position Toronto as Canada's young and dynamic financial hub. In this program, our aim is to kindle the enthusiasm and sense of responsibility within the environmentally conscious younger generation. Through their efforts in organizing art exhibitions, publicizing, and promoting awareness of environmental protection, we aspire to turn Eco Toronto's vision into the reality of the world's most colorful financial center. Over the next 2 years, 15 young individuals from Toronto will acquire climate related expertise and ideas, concurrently developing new leadership skills through the management of the Art for Earth exhibition project. Participants will undergo professional leadership training encompassing the enhancement of communication skills, teamwork, problem solving, and decision making abilities. Our youth volunteers aspire to contribute to making Toronto greener, evolving into the next generation of the city's environmental stewards and establishing profound connections with various local climate advocates, engaging the public through youth driven peer involvement. And this is our poster for the leadership program, and feel free to take a look. This is our poster for calling all artists to join the exhibition. And now I will be sharing 2 videos that our kind youth leaders have filmed for us about the exhibition. I encourage you all to join the Art for Earth exhibition to showcase your artistic skills and also your passion for environmental conservation, global climate change, and creating a greener Earth together. This is an amazing opportunity to contribute towards a meaningful cause.
Hi, I'm Navjot, a volunteer at GSSYA. Climate change is a significant issue we all are facing. It's fantastic that GSSYA is educating all the young people on how to combat it. Let's all collaborate for a sustainable future.
Okay, so here is the QR code to apply for artwork submission or for the leadership team. We invite our youth artists and volunteers to create artworks to notice public for the greener earth and invite volunteer students over grade 8 to join this leadership program to improve their 6th most important leadership skills. It is a good chance for both volunteers to get volunteer hours, certificates, and reference letters for universities and scholarships. And so I will leave up this QR code for around 30 seconds. Okay, so now I will be talking about why our exhibition or all climate problems connect to pollinators. It's because pollinators are strongly interconnected with biodiversity of both plants and animals, climate change, and global food security, plus the health of ecosystems and the food chain. And that is why today in my workshop, I will be talking about pollinators. And I will be going over pollinators, talking about why they're amazing, but also why they are important, and what's happening to them and what we can do to help them. So first, I will start off with basically introducing all types of pollinators. Okay, so before we start, what is pollen? Pollen is a powder produced by flowers, and you can basically see it in this picture. It's on the bee, and that is the pollen, the small dots. And so it's pretty logical that pollinators move pollen. They probably have something to do with pollen, and they actually do. So they move pollen from one flower to another, and the reason for this is they can help flowers create seeds. Okay, so why would they move from flower to flower? That's because there is nectar. And so what is nectar? Nectar is a sweet liquid produced by flowers that attracts pollinators. And pollinators eat nectar for energy, which is why they move from flower to flower looking for nectar. And you can think of nectar as the food for pollinators. So I'll just give a few seconds and see if we can think about any pollinators that we already know. So in this presentation today, we'll be covering bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, bats, and beetles. So why are they important? Well, first of all, they help plants create seeds. Also, 75% to 95% or most of flowers need help from pollinators. And also, 1 bite out of every 3 bites of food we eat are there because of pollinators, and that makes them super, super important. All of these food actually comes from pollinators. For example, tomatoes, nuts, avocados, strawberries, bananas, apples, grapes, and chocolate. So first, we'll be talking about bees. There are many types of bees actually. We might all know about the honeybee, but actually honeybees is the only one type of the bee. And so there are, for example, the sweat bee, the carpenter bee, which actually digs holes in wood and lives there, and that's super cool. We also have the leafcutter bee, which, as the name suggests, it cuts leaves. We also have the bumblebee, and of course, the honeybee that everyone knows about. So fun fact, there are over 20,000 bee species in the world and over 800 native bee species in Canada. And so how do bees get pollen? Well, when bees go from flower to drink the nectar in the flower, the pollen gets stuck to their body. And we can see this shown in this image on the right, that there are many yellow dots, which is pollen stuck on the bee while it's drinking nectar. And so when the bee finishes drinking nectar from this flower and moves on to the other flower, the pollen will also move on to the other flower, and that helps flowers create seeds, which would help more flowers grow. And so how do bees get pollen? Well, if you look at it in this image, there is a yellow clump on the bee's back legs, and it's called a pollen basket. So that's where bees put a lot of its pollen, aside from getting it stuck on the fur. Okay, how many times do you think a bee can flap its wings every second? The answer is 230 times. That's really fast, and I will be showing a video of just how fast they can flap. Yep, that's really, really, really fast. Okay. So for bees, they can be either social or solitary. Social means that bees live with other bees, like honeybees. Solitary means that these bees live by themselves. And so now I will show a video of a honeybee hive and what's inside it, and it will also provide really good information on honeybees as a whole.
Bees first appeared on Earth 130 million years ago, and they outlived dinos. What helped them survive for so long is an incredibly complex structure of their society and teamwork. Each bee has its own role and responsibility. Some of them build and repair their home, some bees protect it, others clean the hive and get food. But what if you could sneak into a hive and figure out how this whole system works? What would you see inside? For some mysterious reason, it's easy for you to get past the guards. But if you were a bee from another colony, they wouldn't let you in without a fight. The guard bees look rather intimidating. They stand on their back four legs at the hive's entrance, their front legs raised in the air. These bees inspect every insect entering the hive with their antennae and front legs. Each hive has its own odor, and the guards can understand if a bee belongs to their colony by smelling it. Only the bees that live in the hive can get inside. Suddenly, you see something strange. One of the guard bees has detected an intruder. An alien bee must have mistakenly tried to enter the wrong hive, but it's carrying a load of nectar, and the guard lets it in. Apparently, they don't mind accepting free gifts of food, even from strangers. You feel too curious to linger there any longer. The hive has only one entrance. You notice that the walls around it look strange. You take a closer look and understand that it's coated with a thin layer of some substance. It's propolis, hardened plant resin produced by bees. It helps fight infections and cures different health problems. A bit further, you can see countless honeycombs. They're densely packed hexagonal cells made of beeswax. Bees use them to store food, pollen, and honey. That's where they keep eggs, larvae, and pupae. Honeycombs are fixed to the walls of the hive. They stretch from top to bottom and are even attached to the sides. But you spot narrow passageways along the comb edges. Bees use them to move around the hive. You might also be able to squeeze through one of these tunnels. After exploring the place, you figure out that bees store honey in the upper part of the comb. Beneath, there are cells that contain pollen. Then there are cells used for keeping eggs with future worker bees. And at the very bottom, there are drone eggs. Of course, your ultimate goal is to see the queen bee, but it's not that easy to find her. First, you come across lots of other bees. Most of them are workers. They make up the largest part of the hive's population, and they're all ladies. Each of them has its own task. The most common of them is foraging. You spot a bee leaving a hive and decide to follow it. The queen can wait a bit. You want to see how bees provide food for the hive. The bee is buzzing ahead of you. After visiting a couple of flowers, it suddenly starts wiggling while hovering in one place. Ah, that's the famous bee dance. That's how bees communicate. Once a forager finds a perfect supply of nectar, it starts to perform a very precise dance. It consists of a series of straight lines and figure eights. Throughout the dance, the bee is also shaking its wings. How long the dance lasts means how far away from the hive the nectar is. Every 75 milliseconds is another 330 feet to the distance. And how intense the dance is depends on the richness of the source of the nectar. The stronger the waggle is, the more nectar the bee has found. And there's also the angle of the dance. It shows the direction of the nectar in relation to the sun. Your bee must have found tons of nectar. It's practically vibrating. Suddenly, it starts flying back to the hive. You follow it. There, the bee does a shake dance in front of the other worker bees. This is how it tells other bees they need to go foraging right away. You decide to stay behind and just watch what will happen. Soon, the bees return. They've brought back a lot of nectar that needs to be ripened into honey. Your bee does a tremble dance this time. It's shaking its legs in a way that makes its body tremble all over. This little dance makes other workers get down to process the nectar. It's time for you to resume your search. You dive back into the hive and begin to squeeze through small passageways. You come across the cells where worker bees begin their lives as eggs. It takes a bee 21 days to develop from an egg into a full-grown worker. The first task of this new worker is to clean the cell where it grew. The cell then becomes a nursery for a new egg, and the bee looks after this egg. Later, it feeds the larva and keeps it warm. During the next stage of its life, when it's 12 to 20 days old, the bee starts doing chores around the hive. It produces wax, stores pollen and nectar, builds the comb, guards the entrance, and so on. When the bee turns 20 days old, it becomes a forager. It looks for and delivers pollen, nectar, and tree resin to make propolis. The bee also brings water. Bees need it for drinking and cooling the hive. At one point, you see something that looks like a hospital room. There, worker bees look after those that feel unwell. The doctors bring them different types of honey depending on their infection. If there's no other way, they remove a sick bee from the hive. It helps to prevent the entire colony from getting in. And then there are also temperature control bees. The temperature in the hive is usually around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. It's crucial to keep it this way, not hotter, not colder. Otherwise, the eggs won't hatch. You see a group of bees and instantly understand they're temperature bees. Apparently, the temperature in the hive has dropped, and now the bees are trying to warm it up. They're vibrating in a special way, which raises their body temperature, and you can feel the air around you become a bit warmer. And if they needed to cool the hive, they would go and gather some water droplets. Then they would bring this water on their backs. Once in the hive, the temperature bees would buzz their wings very fast, making the water evaporate and lower the temperature. You move further and soon come across a bee you haven't seen before. It has huge eyes, a large body, and no stinger. It's a drone, the only kind of male bee in the hive. Drones don't have any foraging tools either. Their only purpose is to mate with the queen and care for her. The drone's life isn't too long. For one thing, if this bee manages to mate with the queen, it never survives the process. And if there's a food shortage or winter is coming, worker bees usually kick drones out of the hive and don't let them back in. Wow, that's hard. You keep going until you finally notice a nursery. There, you spot a bee that is twice the size of a worker bee. Your quest has come to an end. That's the queen. This bee is the most important one for the hive because it's the only bee that can lay eggs. Despite her title, the queen doesn't actually rule, and her brain is smaller than that of a worker bee. But she produces special pheromones that influence the mood of the entire hive. The queen also gives birth to every single bee in the colony. When the queen is still a larva, worker bees feed her royal jelly. That's a goop with super high sugar content. A larger cell, along with such a diet, leads to a bigger body and the future queen's ability to emit the pheromones. When the queen has mated with drones, she returns to the hive. 3 days later, she starts laying eggs and never stops. She works especially hard in the spring, laying one egg every 20 seconds. No wonder that later in the year, the colony already has a population of 30,000 to 60,000 bees. But wait, something strange is happening here. A group of worker bees, in fact, lots of them, might be half the colony, leave the hive with the queen leading them. It means the colony has become too big. The queen goes outside for the first time since mating, and the whole swarm sets off in search of a new home. Back in the hive, a new queen hatches from an egg 8 days later.
Yeah, so that was a pretty comprehensive video of the honeybee's life. And so the video did mention the honeybee dance, which is the way that honeybees communicate with each other. And that's really interesting. So I will show a actual real life video of the honeybee dance. And so you will be able to see a bee in the middle that's dancing in the pattern of an sideways 8 and also wiggling a lot. So that is the bee that's communicating to the other bees through the dance. Yep. So as a summary, the longer the waggling, the further away the food is, and the stronger the waggle, the more nectar is found. All right, so the leafcutter bee is another bee that I've mentioned before, and basically its job is to cut leaves. And so let's take a look at how they live and why they're cutting leaves. And so as another fact to know, leafcutter bees are solitary, which means that they live by themselves.
Have you ever seen a bee dig a hole? This is a leafcutter bee. You won't find it as part of a swarm, and you won't find it in a hive. Leafcutters are solitary bees, so instead of storing honey in close hives made of wax, they have a different strategy. As you might have guessed from their name, they cut leaves. Using sharp jaws, the female bee cuts neat circles out of the leaves of roses,
lilac, and pea plants. The plants aren't harmed by the donation, and the bee has an important use for the fragment. She holds the curled up leaf circle between her legs and flies to her chosen nesting spot. Favorite nest sites are long tunnels. The bees either find one in a hollow plant stem or a BB&B, or if they need to, they dig them out of loose material like dry soil. In goes the leaf, and another one, and another. Inside the nest, she arranges her leaf pieces into thimble-shaped rooms, leaves a store of nectar and pollen for food, and lays a single egg on top of the food hoard. Sealing up the room with another fragment of leaf, she creates a safe haven with everything a developing bee larva needs. But her work isn't done. She'll create up to 20 leafy nurseries in a single nest before she's done. All that foraging for leaves and food doesn't just make her a dedicated mother, it makes her an excellent pollinator too. Leafcutter bees are responsible for pollinating some important crops, like alfalfa that's used to feed livestock, as well as lots of fruit and veg. And they're so efficient that one alfalfa leafcutter can do the work of up to 20 honeybees. Nice one, leafcutter bees. If the summer stays warm, then the busy mother's efforts will soon pay off. Inside the leaf cocoon, the egg will hatch to a larva, develop into a pupa, and in a month or two, emerge as an adorably fluffy adult leafcutter bee, ready to start the cycle all over again. To learn more about these gentle solitary bees and how to encourage them into your garden, follow the links in the description to check out the good work being done by the Solitary Bee Week team and other bee lovers. And if you enjoyed this insight into these weird, hole-digging, leaf-snipping bees, give us a like and subscribe to The Science on YouTube.
Okay,
Have you ever...
so you might have also heard of wasps. And they are pretty similar to bees. So how can we tell the difference between bees and wasps? Wasps and bees are all pollinators, except bees are hairy, they have less clear colors, and they can only sting once, while wasps have no fur, they have, as you can see, like obviously clearer colors, and also they can sting multiple times, but be assured that both bees and wasps, they don't usually sting if nothing happened to them, so like we don't do anything to them, they won't just like sting out of nowhere. But both of them are pollinators, so they're good. So next, I will be talking about butterflies. And there are many types of butterflies as well. So there are the, for example, Canadian tiger swallowtail. There's the silver blue butterfly. Yes, really cool. And also our monarch butterfly. And so how do butterflies pollinate? I would say they are pretty similar to bees because they also just have pollen getting stuck on their body when they visit from flower to flower. And when they drink the nectar, pollen gets stuck. And then when they go to the other flower, the pollen gets to the other flower and thus creating seeds. So I will be showing a video of the butterfly life cycle because that is a really cool process to know about. Yeah, so that was the butterfly life cycle. And so butterflies, they might actually blend in to hide from predators. For example, in these two images, we can see that some butterflies have something called the camouflage, and they use it to blend in with their surrounding environments. Okay, so now I'll be talking about hummingbirds as the next type of pollinators. So there are also many types of hummingbirds. But I will be giving 7 examples. For example, the ruby-throated hummingbird, the rufous hummingbird, black-chinned hummingbird, Calliope hummingbird, Anna's hummingbird, broad-tailed hummingbird, Allen's hummingbird. Yeah, and so they pollinate similar to bees and butterflies, but they also have really long beaks and tongues, which makes them really good for the thinner and slimmer flowers. And so when they drink nectar, the pollen gets stuck on their beaks and feathers, and then so when they go to other flowers, they just pollinate like that. But it's interesting that hummingbirds can actually fly backwards and upside down. And no other pollinators or any other type of pollinator that we're not going to talk about can fly backwards and upside down. They also have fork-shaped tongues that can reach out a beak's length. And what does that mean? It means that you will see what it means by reaching out a beak's length, because that's really cool. So if the beak is here as we can see it, the tongue that reaches out can also reach out the same distance as the beak's length. Yep, and so we were able to see how hummingbirds have really unique beaks and tongues, and how they drink from flowers. So some other fun facts are that hummingbirds like to return to the place where they were hatched. Also, there are over 350 hummingbird species in the world, but also their night nests are pretty tiny. So next I'll be talking about a pretty special pollinator, and they are bats. And so the reason why they are special is because they pollinate in the dark. So they take the night shift. And so when they pollinate, it looks like this. They bury their head into the flower, and so they get pollen on their faces and bodies. And the good thing about bats is that they can carry pollen farther than any animal, because They have really strong wings and they can fly over really long distances. Okay, so here's a video of essentially how bats pollinate in the dark. Yep. And so, did you know that hanging upside down actually helps bats fly? Because when they hang upside down, they're essentially always in the ready position to fly. And so that's why they even sleep upside down. And so bats sleep during the day, as we know, and there are over 1,100 species of bats worldwide, with 18 species in Canada alone. So the final type of pollinators that I will be talking about is the beetles. And so how do beetles pollinate? They don't really have a specific body part that carries pollen, but just like other pollinators, when beetles visit flower seed pollen, some pollen gets stuck on their bodies. And here's a video showing that process. So it basically shows how beetles pollinate and what they do with the flowers. So it's the same, so I'll be skipping that. And so some fun facts include that beetles are actually one of the first pollinators in the world. Before any bees or birds or anything existed, beetles existed first compared to them. And also, beetles can be as big as 20 centimeters long as the hand, but also they can be as tiny as a grain of sand, and we cannot see them. Fun fact, most beetles only live for 1 year before they die. Ladybugs, fireflies, and lightning bugs are also beetles. And there are over 300,000 species of beetles in the world. And some beetles help eat dead trees. So now that we've had an introduction of essentially all the different types of pollinators, we'll also be talking about native plants. And that's important because we know that pollinators are very important for us. They're important for biodiversity, for creating all the food we have, and also they're just great species. But what is the key to pollinator health? Like, how can we make sure that pollinators are thriving in the world, and what can we do for them? Now, the key lies in native plants. So, why are native plants important? Because they provide enough food for the pollinators that they like. When plants are not native, they are invasive, which means that they do not originally belong in this area. So invasive plants cannot provide enough food for the pollinators, and that will make pollinators get hungry and they might die. And so yes, native plants provide more food and attract more pollinators. And just as a review, why should we protect pollinators? Pollinators help plants and food grow, which means there is more nutrition in our diet. And because they help grow plants, they can provide food and shelter for other species as well, such as some animals. And also some plants that they help grow can be used for medicine. But what's happening now? Well, sadly, pollinators are facing a lot of big challenges today. First of all, they're losing their homes or their green spaces, or like more specifically, native gardens. They are killed by pesticides. They are also, there's less food, for example, nectar and pollen, because of invasive species, and I've mentioned that before. Only native plants provide enough food for pollinators. And native plants means that this plant originally belongs in this area. And there's pollution and climate change. So here are some simple actions that we can take to help pollinators. First of all, we can learn about pollinators. We can tell friends and families about what we learned, because education is the first step of taking action. So today, after you've heard about all these pollinators and what problems they're facing right now and why they are so important, we can tell our friends and families to avoid pesticides and also plant more native plants. Maybe plant a few native flowers in your garden so that they can provide food for passing pollinators. And also, just to tell everyone about what you know so that we can work together collectively to make changes and help pollinators in the world. And so just expanding on native plants, why are native plants so important? It's because invasive plants, when they don't belong in this area and they come to a place, they compete and often outcompete native plants, which means that there are less native plants in this area, which could be harmful for pollinators. And so look around the neighborhood and look at all the pollinators around you. Like, what do you see? Do you, like before, if you only saw bees, now do you see all the butterflies? Maybe bats. Do you see the hummingbirds or even the beetles or even wasps? And are there anything you haven't noticed before? And is there anything you can do for them? So if there is, I strongly recommend just doing some actions that are as simple as telling your friends and families, or just planting a few plants and just avoid using really harmful pesticides that kill pollinators. Okay, so I will leave it for any questions that you might have. So if you have any questions, please just feel free to either raise your hand and verbally say it or type it in a chat. No questions? Okay, I guess we are very clear with everything. So, if we don't have any questions about this presentation, I'll be talking about some frequently asked questions about the Art for Earth exhibition. So, this picture shows where the exhibition will be actually held. And also, if you want to drop off an artwork, please email ssytutor@gmail.com in advance and book a drop-off time. And then after you book your drop-off time, remember to drop off your artwork and book the time after Sunday at 1 p.m. So please book some time after this time and don't drop it off before that. But aside from that, anyone's welcome, and I strongly encourage you to enter an artwork into this exhibition. And so for leadership applications, we can apply by scanning the QR code. And also after you scan the QR code and you submit your application, there will be a Zoom interview with the GSSYA HR team. And don't stress about the interview because it is very relaxing and everyone's nice. So after an interview, you will be notified whether or not you are selected to be on the leadership team. For general volunteer hours, if you spend time creating your artwork, whatever time you spent in your artwork, you can log those volunteer hours and you can get those hours too. And if you're on the leadership team, any time that you spent on the leadership team, you can count that as well. For reference letters and certifications, they're available upon request. So if you need any letters for university applications or scholarships, and you're on say you're a volunteer or you're on the leadership team, you can ask for them and GSSYA will provide them for you. So I will be leaving up the QR code once again so that we can all scan it for the leadership application. So I'll just get the QR code. It's at the very, very beginning. Yep, so I'll leave it up for 1 or 2 minutes for everyone to scan and apply. And just a reminder, this QR code is for both entering an artwork for the exhibition and for joining the leadership team. Okay, so I will be switching soon. All right. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about either the presentation or about the Art for Earth exhibition? If you do, please just say it anytime. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll just leave some final questions for you to think about after this presentation to remind yourself of what you just learned. Think about if you can name 5 pollinators. Think about what foods bees can help pollinate. You can also think about which pollinators can fly backwards. You can also think about which pollinator comes out at night. And what type of plants do pollinators like? A hint, they definitely do not like invasive plants. Okay, yeah, so thank you for listening to this presentation, and we would like to thank our youth leaders, Jasmine, Joe, Sharia, and Ninad, and each and every one of our volunteer team for all that we did to set up this info session. And thank you for all the leaders for playing such a crucial role in all the GSSYA accomplishments. And so if you submit a leadership application, after we get your application, our HR team will set up a one-on-one Zoom interview and follow up with you. So I got a question. Theme are you guys looking for the artwork? So for our theme, it could be anything environmentally related. So if you want to just do something about environmental conservation in general, or if you want to do something about climate change or about pollinators or about biodiversity, it's all welcome. So a idea that I have, like if you want to do something, you want to draw a bee or something, but be creative, like don't just draw a bee, but any ideas are welcome, and just a reminder that any form of artwork is also welcome. So thank you everyone for joining our info session today.
Thank you. Thank you for the workshop.
You're welcome, no problem. And if you have any questions, please just like email us anytime.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Where can we see the recording? We do have a recording, and if you would like it, you could send an email to us and we'll see how we can get it to you. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I will drop the drop our email into the chat. One second. Okay. Here's the email that you can send to if you have any questions at all or any like recording questions.